Hello and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. My name is Bob Power, and on behalf of OTC Markets, we're very pleased you've joined us for today's battery and precious metals presentations. Our next live presentation comes to you from Sun Summit Minerals. Before I introduce our speaker, a few points to note. Please submit your questions in the question box to the left of the slides. If you're interested in scheduling a meeting with Sun Summit Minerals, please click on the Meetings tab found on the left navigation bar. You'll be able to view the company's availability and submit a meeting request. On a final note, all of today's presentations will be recorded and available for 24/7 replay. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome Sharon Alexander, President of Sun Summit Minerals Corporation, which trades on the OTCQB venture market under the symbol SMREF, and on the TSXV under the symbol SMN. Welcome, Sharon.
Thanks for that intro, Bob. It's great to be here again. It's great to speak about Sun Summit Minerals and some of the new exploration plans that we have for 2023. So I will be making some forward-looking statements, so please note these cautionary notes. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, we have our flagship Buck project in central British Columbia. It's a bulk tonnage gold, silver, and zinc property. We're finding hundreds of meters of near surface mineralization at more of these lowish bulk tonnage grades, so 0.5 gram to 1 gram per ton gold. But with that size and scale, there's really quite a lot of mineralization in the ground. In addition to the bulk tonnage, we also have some high grades, and I'll be going over this in more detail in the presentation. We have quite a lot of money we put into the ground. We currently have 84 diamond drill holes for just over 30,000 meters. We are pre-resource. And in terms of a geologic analog, we're using the Blackwater Gold Project as a comparable. It's located just to the southeast of the Buck project. And not only is it very similar to Buck in terms of mineralization, but it's also currently being permitted, which is very important as a comparable to see that a mine or a deposit like this could be economic and permitted for mining. The property is quite large, 33,000 hectares, with many underexplored and undrilled targets. In terms of capital, we have about $2.5 million in the bank, and when we'll be starting to drill on some of these additional targets. Near-term catalysts, of course, is we will be starting to drill on 2 of these targets. We had a news release out last week. As well, there's significant discovery potential across the entire property. We're in a very great neighborhood with formerly producing mines and active exploration projects. So we're pretty excited about what we're finding at Buck, Maine, as well as we're going forward and exploring what else is on the property. So when I mentioned we're in a great neighborhood, I think that's pretty true. It's in a mining-friendly district. Equity Silver Mine is to the east of us, and Huckleberry Copper Mine is to the southwest. And then Blackwater you see there to the southeast. It's about 170 kilometers. So their proven and probable reserves at Blackwater is 8 million ounces at 0.75 gram per ton gold. So these are those kinds of grades that we're seeing in a more bulk tonnage type system. And that's what we're seeing at Buck, Maine. Keeping in mind that Buck, the system there, it's unconstrained. It's open in all directions. We haven't yet found the limits on mineralization. So there is the potential to expand that mineralized footprint considerably. In addition, there's other active exploration projects in the area, and they're looking for different things. We're in a porphyry belt. So Teck, for example, to the west of us has a copper gold porphyry. Equity Metals Silver Queen deposit is to the south of us. And where we've done the drilling so far at Buck, Maine is just one small area of that large property package. And so we're very excited to get drilling on some of these additional targets and see what else would be on this property in terms of discovery potential. I mentioned Blackwater is currently being permitted. They're expecting their mine permit from the BC government this quarter. So that's coming very shortly. In addition, they're expecting their first gold pour in 2024. So this shows that not only can a mine get permitted in BC, but also a bulk tonnage mine can be economic. In terms of costings, Blackwater had to put in their own infrastructure, while the Buck project has very excellent existing infrastructure, road and rail. And so in a potential mining scenario, our costs could be quite a bit lower than Blackwater as well. Just to go over that location and infrastructure, so we're about an hour south of the town of Smithers and about a 20-minute drive south of the town of Houston, which is a resource-friendly town. There's a lot of logging and resource extraction in the area. What really sets us apart here at this project is the amount of existing infrastructure. So we can drive right to the drill rig. We don't need to have helicopter support, for example. And in addition, we can drill 12 months out of the year. It's fairly moderate terrain. It's not like the Golden Triangle where our drill pads are, on the side of a mountain, which is very beautiful. However, it's not very cost effective, and you're kind of locked in with seasonality. But here at the Buck project, we can explore year round. And so you'll notice if you look to our past drill programs, a lot of those have been in the spring and the fall, and then we save the summer for some of the field exploration like geochemistry and geophysics and things like that. So year-round exploration access keeps exploration costs low. And yeah, I think it's a really great location. So focusing on the Buck main system, that's where we've done all of our drilling so far. We're up to over a kilometer strike length. Type of grades that we're getting here is, as I mentioned, 0.5 gram to 1 gram per ton gold over several hundred meters right from surface. That's more of that disseminated mineralization. There's different styles of mineralization here, which are really it goes by rock type. So for example, as these mineralized fluids come through the rock, the more disseminated mineralization would be in more of the porous rocks. And then that's where we get the large surface footprint and the mineralized footprint that would make this type of bulk tonnage scenario economic. But then in addition, we have some high grade. So in 2020 and then followed up in 2021, we had a high-grade discovery, 1.5 meters of close to 50 gram per ton gold. And then as well in 2021, 0.5 meter of 250 gram per ton gold. So some pretty exciting grades that we're finding here. This is more of a vein-hosted type mineralization, still within the same system. But this is a very complicated system. There's been multiple pulses of fluids going through here and different magmatic events. And so that's where we're getting these different styles of mineralization, which each contribute a bit differently to the system. So it is a bit complicated. However, it's a good problem to have, I think, to have a lot of mineralization. We're still doing some 3D modeling as well as some structural studies to see what is really controlling the mineralization. But what's key here is we're over 1 kilometer strike length, and every time we step out, we find more mineralization. So we found some pretty significant grades to the west in our program from fall 2022, as well as additional high grade. So we'd love to continue to step out drilling at Buck Main just to see how big this mineralized footprint can get. As well, there's open areas to the east, to the south, and as well to the north. So I think Buck Main, we don't have a resource on it yet. However, we'd like to keep drilling and see just how big we can get this before putting a resource on it. This is a very good slide showing just the potential of and this in terms of the size and scale. So we started off, we optioned the property at Buck Main in 2019, and in 2020 we had our first drill program. Since then, we've had 6 drill campaigns. So the latest batch of drilling is currently being modeled. So we'll have an update for you guys shortly. But this shows you just how successful we've been at finding additional mineralization. So we've taken it from a very small footprint to over the kilometer strike length, and you can see that this mineralization is not only right from surface, but it's continuous, it's cohesive, and that's what you need in type of a bulk tonnage type scenario. And then as well, once we get the new drilling on this from fall 2022, you'll see again how this mineralized envelope has increased. So it's definitely an exciting time. I'd love to put more drill holes in here just to see how big we can get the footprint before thinking about a resource, but we're well on our way. So again, just doing a comparison with Blackwater, on the left, you see the Blackwater system. So again, it's a intermediate sulfidation epithermal gold and silver system. That's the same as Buck Main. They're about 1 kilometer strike length. We're at that now, but with additional drilling, we can expand that. It's the same metal association. So this is something that's been very interesting in terms of exploration strategy. The same thing at Blackwater that we're finding at Buck Main, that there's a very strong association between zinc and gold, more so, for example, than silver and gold. And so we're using zinc as a pathfinder. In terms of exploration, there's not a lot of outcrop here on the property. And so we have to use things like geochemistry, surface samples, in order to find out what's, in the underlying bedrock. And zinc is actually a really good metal to look for in the superficial environment. It's pretty mobile, and so it's also easy to find or test for. For example, if you have a portable XRF device, you can test your samples right in the field and be able to get a zinc value, and several other base metals as well. And so it allows you to make some pretty quick decisions in the field without having to have your assays back for gold and silver. And we found that that's been quite helpful in terms of our exploration strategy at Buck Main. And I also want to mention, important to note that one of the senior geologists at the Blackwater project, he was part of the discovery team at Blackwater. He is now our technical advisor. And so he's been pivotal in helping us with our exploration strategy and just figuring out what worked, what didn't at Blackwater, and really streamlining our way forward. So that's important to note as well. That's Dr. Christopher Leslie. So we've been drilling Buck Main for a few years now, but what is new and what I think will really impress shareholders is just the potential for discovery on the property. I mentioned there's 33,000 hectares, largely unexplored. There's been some historic occurrences, but again, there's very little outcrop. You can't always do traditional prospecting. So a lot of these prospects that have been looked at in the past just through using a rock hammer, excuse me, the ones that have been easy to find, I think, have been found. So now we have to rely on alternative exploration techniques such as geophysics, geochemistry, looking at glacial ice directions and trying to figure out, put together a big picture of what the potential could be here. So we're taking these different layers of different data layers in our database, the airborne geophysics, the ground geophysics, as well as soil, rock, and silt samples, putting those layers together, and where we see a coincidental anomaly, that's a pretty good indication that there's something there. And so in 2022, we were granted a property-wide exploration permit, which is important to note because previously we were only able to drill around the Buck Main area where there had been some historic drilling. But we went through the process of permitting and we received the property-wide exploration permit. And so that really opened the doors in terms of what else we could do here. So in anticipation of that permit, we did a whole bunch of property-wide exploration in 2022. First of all, you can see on the map here, there's an airborne VTEM geophysical survey. So that was more of a first pass overview to see if there's any interesting features, any resistive or conductive features that might look interesting. And from there, we planned a pretty robust surface sample geochemistry survey. And then in addition, we chose 2 of these targets. So that would be Eagle Eye and Irk, you can see circled in the map, to do some ground IP geophysics. And what we came up with is some pretty great drill targets at Irk and Eagle Eye, which I'll go over, but also a whole pipeline of targets that have never before been drill tested and look pretty exciting. There we go. So I'll go over the Irk target first. So you can see on the inset map, we were first turned on to Irk by its large geochemical footprint. So what you're seeing in the inset map there is soil geochemistry by zinc. I'd mentioned we were using zinc as a pathfinder for gold, for finding gold in the system. And we could do that right in the field with an XRF device. And if you look at that zinc anomaly at ERC, that's, a couple kilometers wide. That is a huge anomaly. So we knew something was there. The problem is when you have such a large anomaly with very little outcrop, the question is, where would you put a drill hole? And we're very cognizant of that. We don't want to, waste shareholders' money. We want to make sure that we understand the underlying bedrock, or what could be controlling that mineralization, and where the source of that mineralization is. So we followed that up with a ground IP survey, which you see in the big map there. And from that, we were able to get a few really interesting geological and structural interpretation. So you see those kind of north trending dotted lines. Those are interpretive structures. So resistive structures that we see in both the IP resistivity and the VTEM, which in some way seem to control mineralization. They correspond with some of the anomalous rock samples that we're finding, and those are those purple kind of stars on the map there. So these lineaments where they intersect in particular is where you get these higher grades. And it's not just silver, it's lead, it's zinc into the percents. So this is some pretty exciting rock samples that we're finding here. And so we've outlined 3 areas for drill testing. We will be drilling them this quarter, so that will be very shortly. And you can see one of the targets at the top there, that red is a IP chargeability high that usually denotes sulfides. And the other 2 areas have some pretty strong base metal values in rock samples. So we're going to start drilling ERC, probably 2 or 3 holes there. And so, yeah, I'd never been drill tested, huge anomaly. And we had to do that work to figure out, to kind of vector in and see where these drill holes would be placed. So that's going to be starting this quarter. Going to Eagle Eye, this is the other target that we will be drilling. We followed up the airborne VTEM and the geochemistry with a ground IP survey, just like at ERC. And what we found was a very sizable IP chargeability high. Now, again, that usually denotes sulfides, and this coincided with some outcrop and some rock samples that were very altered and had indications that it could be a concealed porphyry. So this is a definite drill target. We'll put a few holes in here just to see what's in the underlying bedrock. Again, never been drill tested, so pretty exciting blind targets that we're drilling. Never before been drill tested outside of the Buck main system. So as mentioned, in 2019, we optioned the property. We're currently in the 4th year of a 5-year earn-in agreement. We've had 6 drill campaigns so far, 84 drill holes for 30,000 meters. And really, there's blue sky potential here. We believe that there's a sizable mineralized system at Buck main. However, we want to see what else is on the property. We're in a very mineral endowed, well-endowed area, and the potential for additional deposit types and additional discoveries is quite high. ESG, of course, is very important. Environmentally, we keep things to high standards. In terms of social engagement, we are consulting with the local First Nations groups. We have very good relationships with them, and we just want to make sure that we're doing things right. British Columbia can be seen as a difficult place to get permits or to work with different groups. However, if you put the time in and you're through early engagement and cooperation, you can definitely get things done. So in terms of share structure, we're at 77 million shares outstanding. We're currently sitting at about a $10 million market cap. We have about $2.5 million in the bank, so that is enough for us to begin drilling. Of course, we have a wish list of other targets that we'd like to drill on the property, which we would revisit if we have time and the budget for that. In terms of ownership, we're at about 11% insider ownership. Most of that is our chairman, Tukey Angus, who's been a significant industry player throughout the years. He's also chairman of K92. He was with Bema Gold. High net worth. We have a few high net worth individuals, one of which is the property vendor himself. So he has about 8% of the company. He really believes in the story and believes that there's a potential mine at Buckmain. So it's great to have such shareholders that believe in the story and understand what management is trying to do. About 25% institutional, that came in mostly through our last financing last March, and then the rest is retail. And as well, we have pretty good volume. So there's a lot of people watching the story. And so, yeah, I think we're pretty lucky with our shareholders who have a long-term vision and really understand what we're trying to do here. So again, we have Tukey Angus as our chairman, and then we have a pretty good board of a mix of capital markets and geologists. I'm president. We have Chris Leslie, and as I mentioned, he's part of the discovery team of Blackwater. But yeah, a pretty good team with different experiences: Barrick, SRK, B2 Gold, K92. So in terms of upcoming catalysts, we will begin drilling this quarter on Irk and Eagle Eye. The number of meters still to be determined. It really depends on what we find and what we see in the drill core in the field. So that's going to be a bit fluid and flexible as we go. Again, these are blind targets, so we can't say what we're going to intersect, but hopefully if it's interesting, we will keep the drill going. And then as well, there's significant discovery potential elsewhere. So we're going through the database that we have, and we're working on putting together additional, targets and moving some of these targets towards the drill ready stage. As well, we'd like to do step-out drilling at Buckmain. We think there's a lot of potential there. So definitely we're not moving our focus away from Buckmain, but in fact, I think we're adding to the focus and kind of doing two things at the same time. I think at Buckmain, there's definitely potential, and we're excited to see how big we could see how big that system is. So there'll be a lot of upcoming news, definitely. So stay tuned for that. Here's the option agreement. So we're, in the fourth year of a 5-year earn-in agreement, as I mentioned. And it's interesting to note that a lot of the option agreement here, it's mostly shares instead of cash. And this is, what has made the property vendor such a high net worth individual a significant shareholder of the company, because he really believes in it. And so it's great to have a vendor with such, optimism about the project. Okay, so that's about it. I will go over some questions now. Okay, so are your 2023 drill programs funded? Yes, they are. However, we do expect that the program to expand depending on the time and budget. But we are beginning drilling at Irk and Eagle Eye currently. We have about $2.5 million in the bank, so that is enough for us to begin drilling. However, if there are opportunities to raise additional funds, we'll always be listening for that, as long as there's a value for shareholders as well. Sorry, royalty. What was your key takeaways from fall 2022 drill program at Buck? So it was interesting. I think it was really great to see additional mineralization to the west of the project, significant mineralization. We're learning every time we drill, we're learning more about the controls of mineralization, and it keeps us pretty busy in terms of 3D modeling. We have to update those models and come up with new theories as to what's controlling mineralization. So it is pretty complex here. But what I think is clear is that we want to really vector in on some of this high grade. We did intersect some high grade to the west in the fall 2022 program. However, we're interested in some of those grades that we were getting in 2020 and 2021. 1.5 meters of close to 50, or half a meter of 250 gram per ton gold. And we're doing that by looking at the structural geology. We're looking at the what's controlling the mineralization. And so we've done oriented core, which, for those of you who don't know, is as you drill, you get an idea about the direction of some of these structures going through, the faults and fractures. And then so from there, you can put that in a 3D model and get an idea about connecting these structures between drill holes. And given we know the high grade is probably more of a structurally controlled mineralization than we're focusing on let's source some of this high grade. Let's find where some of this high grade is. We know there's disseminated mineralization. So I think what this taught us is that Buckmain is still growing. We don't want to put a resource on it quite yet, but there's definitely potential for these bulk tonnage grades, as well as let's look for some high grade. What's the permitting process like in BC? So it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty transparent. There is some backlog in terms of approval, but if you know that, it's very manageable. We put in our permit applications quite early. And apart from that, it's very transparent. We're talking with the mines inspectors, and we're able to go through and answer any questions that they have and work together if there's concerns that they have. So it's been pretty good. And we engage early with the different First Nations groups as well, and make sure that everyone in the community is aware and their concerns are addressed. But so far it's been pretty good, and our permitting has had no issues. Let's see what there. How are you managing the impact of inflation on exploration? Yeah, it's not like a lot of industries. We're not immune to the inflation. We've definitely seen an increase in the cost of exploration. When we first started drilling, our all-in costs were quite a bit lower than they are now. However, we're always watching our expenditures. This is a project that does have low exploration costs compared to other areas like the Golden Triangle, for example. And so we keeping costs low in terms of driving to the drill rig instead of helicopter support. And then as well, just in terms of personnel, and always reviewing, our expenditure and keeping an eye on that, and making sure that costs aren't, becoming burdensome. But it is something we're watching, and I think we have a pretty good system here where exploration is quite cheap compared to other places in BC. What are the catalysts for revaluation of Sun Summit? So I would say with our upcoming drill program, if we make a discovery there, we have a pipeline of targets, 2 of which we will be drilling this quarter, and we're going to have, advance a lot of these other targets to drill ready stage throughout the year. So that would be a significant catalyst, is depending on what we find at some of these additional targets. As well at Buckmain, if we make another high grade discovery, as we step out and we're increasing the mineralized footprint to, well over a kilometer, I think that would be a pretty interesting catalyst as well. There definitely is mineralization at Buckmain, and we want to see just how large this system can be. As well, we're doing other things behind the scenes to increase shareholder value. So there will be a lot of news flow throughout 2023. And yeah, it's just stay tuned. We have a lot of things that we're thinking of. It's in a great region. We really like the area, and there could be some additional opportunities very close to home as well. Marketing plans for 2023. So we are doing a lot of virtual and in-person conferences. You've probably seen on social media, and then as well, we're doing a lot of outreach with different newsletter writers and social media influencers and things like this. So really trying to get the word out. I think this is a great story that might be not as well known as some of the other stories, and so it's been our focus to really get out there and share the story with new investors who really understand the story and are wanting to join and stick with us for a long time. So I think that's about it for the questions. So thank you very much for listening. I'd encourage you to go to our website or social media. You can sign up for updates, email updates, and then as well join us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube as well. So there's a lot of content being shared as well. So thank you very